Emotion and One Piece are two words that go together like me and Zoro. But how exactly does Oda craft such emotional moments? I mean, in a world as goofy as One Piece, it doesn't make sense that we can still have moments that absolutely break you, but, well, Oda has managed to create them, and today we'll talk about how he does this. Oh yeah, speaking of emotions, let's talk about how subscribing to this channel would solve your emotional problems. When you search up emotions examples, you get 3 key emotions, and because this is Google and Google is never wrong, these are the only 3 emotions that matter in life. Whenever you feel angry, you could watch this channel to feel happy because you could see Zoro's chest. Because we talk about Zoro's chest, you would be happy, and for the emotion of surprised... Haha, were you expecting that? I'm so sorry. But for real, I'm close to 500 and it would mean the world to me if you subscribed and shit. Genuinely. And I'm so glad we've come this far. Really. I love you guys. Thanks. Before we can talk about how he makes such good emotional moments, we should talk about the emotional moments themselves. What exactly are they? Over the course of the story, there have been many, and I mean many emotional moments, but a common link between most of them is that they all involve one thing: an outburst. In One Piece, emotion is usually blatantly expressed through actions we associate as passionate and emotional, such as screaming or crying. Or in the case of Zoro, both. He can make me cry too. But for real, Oda has constantly used visceral outbursts to display the most emotional moments in the show. Take Robin screaming she wants to live, for example. It is by far one of the most emotional moments in the show, and it is a gut-wrenching scream that she yells while crying. These 2 actions alone draw sympathy from the viewers, as we can visibly see her emotions pouring out onto the page. Oda shows Robin's suffering and grief through just a singular panel, displaying all of her emotions over the course of her life, bubbling and exploding. The emotional outbursts are masterful and perfectly show all the emotion in the world through a singular panel or just a few pages. And Oda's way of crafting these moments all rely on one thing: the build-up. Every single outburst in One Piece has followed a similar pattern for making the scene hit as hard as they do. Firstly, tension. Throughout the preceding arc or arcs, Oda builds up a slow burn tension that will eventually explode within the person or persons who are involved in the outburst. The moment that hits the hardest are always in arcs where there is a constant unease. A lot of the time, Oda does this by slowly breaking a character until what is left of them is a shell that has to let it all out in some way. Sanji is a great example of this. He lost his crew, got reunited with his dogshit family, and lost his only light of hope all in a very short time span. All in a very short time span, which understandably broke him, leading to what I consider as one of the most emotional and painful moments in One Piece. Usopp is also a great example of this. Throughout Water 7 and Enies lobby, he was constantly broken down, which made him apologizing to Luffy and begging to be let back into the crew that much more emotional. By constantly breaking the character down even more, Oda allows the characters to have tensions building up within themselves until they can't hold it back anymore. Along with tension, however, Oda also uses another tool that makes these emotional cries a lot more impactful: backstories. Backstories are used to show all of a character's trauma and past, which not only allows Oda to make us absolutely cry, but it also makes the eventual breakdown that much more emotional. Backstories allow emotional outbursts to shift from something similar to me crying when I see Treble to me crying when I see Treble die. Fuck you, Treble. But what I'm trying to say is that backstories allow the emotional moments to also become liberating. It allows a character to be free of their suffering, which backstories show characters have gone through enough of. I mean, why exactly are backstories so fucking dark? Well, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. Me? Yeah, that was the smoothest transition I can think of. Backstories being darker than my mental state allows emotions to be built up tenfold. It shows what characters have gone through, and seeing how their life has been a living hell makes them getting it off their shoulders 10 times more emotional. Chopper crying, for example, is a great example of this. Seeing Chopper's horrifying backstory is what made this scene so much more impactful. It allowed us to see how much the dream of a Sakura blossom meant to him, and that's what allowed Chopper crying to be a very serious moment that would never be memed on, especially in a meme involving penises. Yup. Very serious shit right here. But for real, before the fanbase came in and did what they did best, ruin scenes, or make them better in some cases. Regardless, Chopper's backstory made his moment so much more impactful, which has been a common theme throughout One Piece. Even Zoro's backstory made his outburst following his fight with Mihawk that much more impactful. Oda making backstories so dark makes the eventual emotional moment that much better. The final and arguable most crucial part of the build-up is what I like to call the drastic change in pacing. Oda does this by making most of his arc fighting heavy and focused on combat, which allows a sudden slow chapter to hit that much harder. It serves as a break from fighting, focused on purely emotion, which obviously enhances the strength of the emotional outcry. Oda makes sure that almost everything stops and we focus purely on emotion for a bit, which allows the moment to stand out even more. The contrast to the pacing for the entirety of the previous arc allows moments to hit 10 times better because, well, they stand out more. Going back to Sanji for a bit, his breaking down came in stark contrast to the arc prior. Everything about the previous few arcs was action-packed and intense, with things always happening, which is what makes the few panels where the world stops to watch a man break down that much more emotional. There isn't any action or crazy things happening in this moment. It's just a broken man breaking down because he's no longer to hold back his emotions. It's just him, absolutely shattered, which is one of the saddest things to happen in a long time. Even his trying to light smoke in the rain is heartbreaking because, well, I don't think he understands that's not gonna work. Oda uses a couple pages to completely shift the tone and pacing of a manga and to allow his emotional moments to shine before switching back to normal. After Ace's death, it was when the war stopped for a bit to watch Luffy's grief, and in his lobby it was Robin's outcry. The changing in pacing and backstories combined to allow emotional moments in One Piece to shine even more than they normally do. And there is one other reason that emotional moments shine as much as they do. The world of One Piece is goofy. A common critique of One Piece is that the world is way too goofy, and other than that barely being a critique, it works in favor of Oda here. Oda has carefully created a world that is by no means serious except for when he wants it to be. I mean, in the middle of the largest battle the show had ever seen, a battle so large it took the entirety of post-time skip to build towards, this was an actual panel. Yes. This. We were flirting with the strongest creature to ever exist. So One Piece isn't the most serious manga, which makes emotional moments stand out that much more. For a brief moment, the show changes from Boing Boing Rubberman and his big-chested friends to actual What the fuck did I just say? It changes from a rubber man sailing with his friends to holy shit that's dark. For a brief moment, Oda completely makes the show switch up and allows for some of the greatest emotional impacts in all of media. The emotional moments in One Piece come in stark contrast to all other parts in the show, which makes their true darkness and impact stand out 10 times more. And finally, these emotional moments always enhance character building. These emotional outbursts are always the most important moments to a character's growth, and more often than not, they are the signifying moments that something has changed within a character. These moments manage to change the perspective of a character on life, and usually are the moment everyone points to when talking about their development. It allows them to get rid of the burden on their shoulders. Overall though, the emotional moments in One Piece are some of the greatest moments in all of media. Oda's ability to write impactful moments always stand out for me. Overall though, that's it for me. Thank you. Why is he still trying to light a cigarette in the rain? I already told him that won't work. Come on, Sanji, do better.